The NFL Combine is here. Welcome to Wednesday's edition of Big Blue Kickoff Live. We did not make it out. It got canceled again last night, and we're at the point where we would be there for like a day and a half, and we decided just this was not worth it because our tremendous crew here and out at the Combine is able to let us do our shows virtually. We thank Pearson, Charles, Matt out there for getting us on the air and getting it all done. Big Blue Kickoff Live is, of course, brought to you by Cadillac, the official luxury vehicle of the Giants. We're here in the Giants podcast studio in snowy East Rutherford, New Jersey, brought to you by Hackensack Brady Health. Keep getting better. John Schmeelk, Paul Dottino. And we go out to the Combine at the Convention Center in Indianapolis, and we bring in from the New York Post, the one and only Paul Schwartz. Paul, I hope you had a couple steaks, a couple of shrimp cocktail for Paul and I last night at St. Elmo's.
It was Harry and Izzy's. Okay, let's
Close enough.
Let's have accurate reporting here, right? We strive for accuracy. It was Harry and Izzy's. I did not have the shrimp cocktail, but the two people with me had the shrimp cocktail. The reports are that it was quite spicy, maybe not as other years, but what was it last year? There was one a couple of years ago. I remember we went dining together, and you were like going crazy that like it had never been that hot in your life or something. Was that, you remember that, John?
Yeah, that was 2 years ago, and then last year it was very mild. So it really depends on the day and the year that you go, and that will definitely alter the spiciness of it.
You know what? The Giants have altered the spiciness of it, meaning the Combine, right? Because it just feels different this year, right? It feels different this year with what did Joe Shane say yesterday? There are times where he just wakes up and pinches himself, and he's like, "Oh yeah, John Harbaugh's the head coach of the Giants." So there's a different feel. There's a different feel coming here with him as the head coach. It just is.
Yeah, absolutely, Paul. So why don't we start with Harbaugh, and then we'll talk about what you heard at the podiums this morning, because since you mentioned Harbaugh. Let's start, before we get to the draft, with free agency. The Giants have a lot of in-house free agents. Maybe you asked the question, somebody else did. The Ravens traditionally were not very heavy in terms of signing people from outside the organization and bringing in big money outside free agents. What did you get from John Harbaugh in terms of what the Giants' approach might be in free agency with their own players and maybe spending big on the outside?
No, it's interesting. I don't think, and this is, we're all learning John Harbaugh, right? We all knew him from the outside, right? From 18 years as a head coach. Now we're starting to learn about him as the head coach of the team that we cover and that you guys will work with, obviously, right? And, I don't think he's saying, I have to bring everything from Baltimore to the Giants. It's all everything we do, all the philosophy. He said we used to be a flat cap team as far as, contracts, like the Giants were. And we started some more voidable years recently, not as much as the Eagles do. So he's like, whatever it's going to take, we're going to figure it out. I don't think, to his credit, he didn't come in, I don't think, and say 90% of what I see here with the Giants is out. I'm getting rid of it because they haven't been a winning organization. I think he cherry-picked. This he likes, this not so much, this not so much, this he's waiting to see on. So free agency, look, they don't have a ton of money. They can create a decent amount of money, which I think they will. I thought it was very interesting because we've seen, without naming names, but, we all know who the Giants head coaches have been. Any younger coach who came here and was an assistant first, there was always a hesitancy, right, to say anything because they hadn't been through it before, right?
Mm-hmm.
There's no hesitancy with John Harbaugh. I asked him, look, there's three very notable free agents you have: Jermaine Illuminor, Cordell Flott, and Wan'Dale Robinson. He said, yeah. I said, would you be less inclined to bring those guys back because they're not your guys? They're not, you have no loyalty to them. He said, well, yeah, I've studied all of them and I want all of them back. Just came right out and said, I want all of them back. Now we'll see if it makes sense. Now, he didn't have to say that. In the back of his mind, he could think, I don't want a 5'8" slot receiver. I don't want a skinny cornerback, or I want a younger right tackle, or I don't love Jermaine Illuminor, who played for Harbaugh for, a year or two in Baltimore. But I want them all back. So he's not like immediately saying everything that happened with the Giants last year was bad, and I don't want any part of that, right? Those three players all had good seasons for a team that won 4 games. But Harbaugh's looking at it and saying, those are 3 guys who had good seasons that I think can help us win if it makes sense financially. So he said, Joe Shane, that's Joe Shane's baby this week. He's going to talk to the agents and kind of get an idea for what's going on, what the parameters are, and then they'll see. But I thought it was very interesting that he comes out and says, yeah, I want him back.
Paul, already we've noticed the coaching staff that he's assembled here with the Giants. I think he brought a half a dozen guys in terms of the primary coaching staff, and then there was some ancillary guys, operations type people he also brought in from Baltimore. And I'm sure that there's a bunch of Baltimore people at the Combine who probably wanted to talk to Harbaugh too to find out how much else he was going to raid from the Ravens organization. Have you been able to get any sniffs or scuttlebutt as to specifically maybe what else he would like to import in terms of free agents per se? Because as we all know, there are some free agents on the Ravens, and a lot of people have called up our show talking about Ricard as a fullback who they think that Harbaugh might want to pilfer.
You know what, though? Does Matt Nagy use a fullback? I mean, he's the offensive guy now, right? You know, we thought originally it was John Harbaugh's going to come and he's going to bring Todd Monken with him, right?
Yeah.
That Ravens offense is going to come to New York. They use a fullback, maybe Ricard, maybe they're going to have a blocking tight end and a fullback. That's not what happened, right? Todd Monken's speaking at 1:00 today as the head coach of the Browns, right? He's got his own podium here, right? Matt Nagy doesn't have a podium here because offensive coordinators don't get podiums here. So, does the Chiefs? Will the Chiefs say a fullback heavy offense? No. With the Chicago Bears when he was the head coach and call a fullback heavy offense?
No.
Okay, I think that's the breadcrumbs. You know, I don't I said, I don't think that's my opinion of it. You know, one thing I think both guys said is that as far as free agents, it's not a player, but they're going to hire, I guess, a video coordinator. And I mean, it's a big operation, isn't it? I mean, you guys are here when you're seeing, you know, this guy's hired, this guy's hired. I was taken last week when the Giants announced that Harbaugh hired 5 analysts, right? 5 football analysts new. There's a new positions, right? Okay, football analysts. I figured I'm going to look at their resumes and they're going to be analytics-driven resumes. Every one of them was a coach, right? Not a quality control coach. Every one of the guys was a coach, a quarterback's coach, a position coach. And I'm like, that's it? So you're adding 5 positions to the coaching staff and you're calling them analysts. And I was told, because John Harbaugh calls them analysts, we would call them coaches. That's 5 additions. So when I remember I wrote when the Giants were thinking about bringing John Harbaugh in, not thinking about it, they really wanted to bring him in, and they were thinking about could it work? And I wrote, are the Giants willing to lay the money for a big program, and not just John Harbaugh's salary, but a big program? He likes a lot of people. So that's 5 new positions, analysts that are coaches. You know, and we look what he has on the offensive side, right? He's got think tanks. He's got think tanks inside think tanks, right?
He does.
Mean, it's now. We'll see if it's too many cooks in the in the kitchen. He was asked about that. He said no. We all put it together. Look, he's got 18 years of putting it together. So I think we have to believe him at this point.
No, Paul, I'm with you. All right, you mentioned 2 different things there in terms of new people that he has brought in. I want to know what he said about Donna Ponte and what her role is going to be, and then how those 3 offensive coaches with 3 very distinct styles are going to work together to kind of put this offense together, and how he's going to influence that operation as well. So hit those 2 things for me.
Yeah, he said somebody was asked him about the 3-headed monster of the offensive coaching staff, and he kind of sat back and said, "Ooh, I like that. I like that 3-headed monster," right? Obviously with the offensive coordinator, with the quarterback's coach, and with Greg Roman, who, what is his title? He's an offensive senior offensive analyst.
Oh yeah, no, you're right. No, I'm sorry, no, you're a senior offensive assistant. Correct.
Right, but he's been a play caller and an offense coordinator for years with many different teams. So that's his 3-headed monster. He said, "Look, in any organization, you can't have hierarchies." I think he called them silos.
Yep.
You can't have too many silos and hierarchies. Like, it's all got to blend together. So, like we mentioned earlier, is there potential for egos? And, Greg Roman can think, I call plays, longer in this league than Matt Nagy did. So I have my input. Look, this is the way it is. You're the head coach. You're the offensive coordinator. I mean, Brian Callahan is the quarterback's coach, right? He went from a head coach 5 minutes ago to the quarterback's coach. He's not the offensive coordinator. He is a quarterback's coach. I think in our minds, guys, can we agree that when we think of a quarterback's coach, we think of a young guy on the way up, right?
Sure.
He'll be an offensive coordinator one day. Boy, he's really good. Davis Webb, right? Quarterback's coach, a young guy on the way up. Greg Roman is an accomplished offensive coordinator. He's an assistant. No, he's and Brian Callahan was a head coach and worked with Joe Burrow. He's now the quarterback's coach. So look, it's like I said, Harbaugh gets the benefit of the doubt. He's putting all these guys in the mix. I think he can handle it. Now, as far as Dawn Aponte, look, her title is the exact same as what Kevin Abrams' title was. Nobody has told me that she's going to do anything drastically different than what he did. Salary cap, contract negotiations. But there are differences in the reporting. And I think Joe Shane and John Harbaugh said that I think video and analytics will report directly to her. Okay? Which is a change, but it's bigger. It's a bigger operation now. So in my way of thinking, the bigger you get, you can't have everything streamlined to the same person, the GM. It's so much bigger now that this person in this role, Dawn Aponte, can siphon some of this off. Harbaugh said it's the three of us, meaning Joe Shane himself and Dawn Aponte, are spearheading this attack. But he said that himself and Joe Shane are the evaluators, the people who are going to be down here evaluating players, which is essentially or exactly the same role that we've noticed before. Joe Shane came out and said it as podium. I am still the general manager. And I believe if you asked him, and I have asked him this, can you list how many things the GM have to do? Let's put a round figure of 100, right? There's 100 things he has to do in his job description. I think 98 of them are the exact same that he was doing last year at this time. So little minute differences maybe, but it's a lot of stuff to be done, a lot.
Paul, did John have anything to say about the rest of the other key members of the staff? Denard Wilson, for example. There were a whole bunch of other people that have been hired. We saw the statement and the press release about them. But was he going into any more further detail as to how he came to some of those selections? Again, specifically Denard Wilson, I'm sure, as the defensive coordinator, is the one that interests most people.
Yeah, well, he praised his tenacity, his smarts, his aggressiveness, but he also said he wanted that system. It's a system that they used in Baltimore, right? Denard Wilson was with John Harbaugh. So it was the person and it was the system. It was like, I think that's very different than how he chose his offensive people. I don't think he said, I want Matt Nagy and what he brings, but that's not the Ravens offensive system. No. Todd Monken was the Ravens offensive system. He liked the Ravens defensive system, which we've seen for years, which has worked way more often than it has not. That's Denard Wilson's system that he took with him to Tennessee, which he is now bringing to the Giants. So it was the person and it was the system, which makes sense, right? I mean, you want to change things according to your personnel, but certain things you want as your core values, and that defense seems to be John Harbaugh's core value.
You know what's interesting about that, Paul? Denard Wilson prefers a 3-safety look, and we know how important Hamilton was to the Ravens when Harbaugh was with the Ravens. I wonder if we're starting to connect some dots here to Caleb Downs.
It's crazy because you go into last week and you think, okay, Caleb Downs, he's one of the top, whatever, 5'10", whatever you want players, but positional value, boy, is safety. And
I know.
Now I'm thinking to myself, he probably won't be there at 5. So you go from saying, can you, and look, this is the time for that, right? Where literally anybody but Mendoza you can mention now about the Giants, and someone will say to you, he won't be there, right? Because that's the way it is. Whenever I do a mock draft, someone says to me, well, he won't be there. And it's like, there can't be 7 players picked in the first 5 picks. That's all there is to it. Somebody, that sometimes they say he won't be there and he won't be there. And it's like, well, they can't all not be there. A team can't come in and quietly say, we put 3 names on the card. We get all 3. So, look, I remember when Leonard Williams came out, he was a terrific player. When Quinton Williams came out, people said that could be the best player in the draft, right?
Mm-hmm.
We knew they weren't going number 1. So you're starting to hear a little bit of that with Caleb Downs now. He could be the quote unquote best player in the draft. So now it comes down to positional value. John Harbaugh has not shied away from talking about a safety. I'll tell you that.
Not at all.
Not at all. Now, I think he's going to be upbeat about a lot of players. We could talk about Sonny Styles, who I was at the podium today. We could talk about him. Basically, when you're in this environment now, basically what you think is, how did Ohio State ever lose a game? And how did Ohio State ever give up any points? Because have we ever had a situation where 3 players on a defense could go in the first, 5, 6, 7 picks? Would you be surprised if those 3 Ohio State players went in the top 7 picks? Would either of you two be surprised?
It would not surprise me at all. And then you're going to have Caden McDonald, who might go at the end of the first round, and their other corner, Noah Ibignosin, go in round 2 or 3. So, Paul, you're right. They are absolutely stacked. I'm with you.
Oh, by the way, they got a wide receiver who could go in the top 5 too.
So, Paul, you mentioned it. You were at the podiums this morning. Paul and I are going to have a chance to watch them a little bit later today. They haven't come in yet. Give us a feel for the positions, the guys that you listen to, and anything that kind of really struck you as being something Giant fans should know about with the player podiums today.
Yeah, well, look, I mean, like I said, I don't want to rub it in, guys, because I know you guys, you guys want to be here. No, yes. I know you want to be here, and I enjoy every year going on some podiums, and then I see you guys afterwards. Were you at his podium? Oh, I missed him. What'd you think? You give me your 10-cent version of what you think. And, sometimes I remember vividly, Paul, with some players, I'm like, I thought he was impressive. And you're like, oh, I don't like him at all. Oh, and I'm like, and, sometimes you're right. Sometimes I'm right. Sometimes neither of us are right. But, it's like,
you never know.
Just impressions, but it's really funny. But sometimes we're just talking about an impression of how we're not talking about his tape, just an impression. And you're like, oh, I don't like that kid. And it's like, what did you like about him? I don't know.
But we were both very high on Jackson Dart from the second we walked away from him.
That was a good podium. Yeah, that was a good podium. No question. Yes. Look, and I don't like to, it's the best. It's the, podiums are podiums, right? And some guys are phony. Some guys don't have anything to say. Some guys are bad. So I've been at some great podiums with guys, and they're like, boy, that guy was not a good player, and he wasn't a great guy, but he was good on the podium. But Sonny Styles was an incredible podium. I don't want to say performance because that sounds phony. I transcribed everything he said, and it was so orderly and well reasoned that each answer was like made perfect sense. So I would say to Giant fans, you say, wait a second, let's talk about positional value. An inside linebacker at 5. What, are you kidding me? Well, he was a safety. He looks, we all size up these guys. He's 6'5", 243, so he's really tall for an inside linebacker. He's played safety. He's played Will. He's played Mike. He's played Sam. In 2024, he was a Will, I believe. He had 100 tackles and 6 sacks and a lot of tackles for loss. Last year, they moved him inside, and he had fewer tackles for loss and fewer sacks. But as we know, the middle linebacker has to do a lot more of the dirty work. So the way I put this is, if Giants and their fans are saying, we need to find someone at number 5 who number 1 priority is stopping the run, I think that's the guy. If that is your main priority, stopping the run.
Well, Paul, I'll tell you.
He seems like a terrific guy and a leader. You can tell. His brother played on the team. He's smart. You know what else? Interesting. He said a lot about what he told NFL teams yesterday and the other night, and he will continue to tell them about what he needs to do better. He said, I told every one of them, when I look at my tape, I know I'm a taller linebacker. My pad level gets too high. And whether it's a good play or a bad play, you can see my pad level creeping up. Now, a lot of players would not go to the podium and say that. You know what I
No,
mean? He's based.
you're right.
He's not saying, they're saying, boy, we're all going to worry about my pad level. Let them figure it out. I'm not telling them that. He also said he said, I was not happy with my impact play production. I just wasn't happy with it. You know what I mean? Now, as a middle linebacker, you're not going to make, as many maybe splash plays. But he said, even in 2024, I had some, I could do more. So that is what I'm telling them, that I want more. Also, I was very impressed when asked about the Giants visit. He said, Coach Harbaugh was great. And then he mentioned the inside linebackers coach. Okay. By name.
Okay.
Who I'm not even fluent with all these coaches yet, right?
Frank Bush. Does that sound right? Frank Bush?
Yeah, yes. He's been in the league for 35 years.
Yes.
But he was with the Ravens. He's been in the league forever, but he has not been with the Giants forever. And he said Coach Harbaugh was great. Coach Bush was great. And think of how many coaches he's meeting for the first time, right? John Harbaugh is easy. The new inside linebacker coach from the Giants, he's not. Bang, he had instant recall. That says something about his smarts.
Well, Paul, I can tell you, we had Daniel Jeremiah on the John Soto podcast yesterday, and this is me plugging it. Guys, go check it out. Giants YouTube channel, podcast networks, all that stuff, Giants app. And I said, look, if you're sitting there, Daniel, and you're the GM, and you're staring at Jeremiah Love, you're staring at Sonny Styles, you're staring at Caleb Downs, Mansour Delane, David Bailey, Carnell Tate, who are you taking if you're the Giants? And his answer for me was Sonny Styles.
It was.
That's who he thought, if
really?
he was the GM, who he would take. So I think this is going to be a deal where we're not going to know what's going to happen, because I don't think we're going to know what's going to happen before the Giants pick, who the Giants might pick. It's going to be a fun ride, Paul. We're looking forward to taking it with you. New York Post, Post Plus, anything else you want to throw out there for us?
We started the California Post, if you want to plug that. California Post, right? We have a California Post now. We've got some writers here now doing all kinds of California-ish things. But no, I will have a Sunny Styles story in the New York Post. It'll be on the website, this afternoon, I'm sure. It'll be in the paper tomorrow. And I would say to any Giant fans, if you look, I did some of the research on the last 4 or 5 years of the run defense, and it looked a little bit like Paul Dottino's, report cards, I think, in middle school. A lot of, last,
Wow.
second to last,
Wow.
third to last.
I used to like you. I don't know anymore.
In math, right? You couldn't have been a great math student, were you?
Actually, I was in advanced math all through school. Yes.
Advanced math.
Yes.
So you're one of the analysts. You're like an analytics guy now.
I could have been on a path to being an analytics guy, but I did not want to do that.
Paul?
An analytics guy? Very good. Okay, so what?
No.
Run past, punt. I didn't know that math. Huh? Okay, all right. Well. So the run defense numbers were not good, unlike Paul Dottino's math scores in middle school, which I hear, as in my reporting skills, are through the roof. Okay, how's that?
Paul, good stuff, my
Very
friend.
good,
Always
Paul.
a pleasure talking to. Enjoy the combine.
Safe travels.
Thanks, guys.
All right,
Yeah,
we had a
wish
chance
you
to
were
talk. Yeah, we wish we were here too, Paul. We wish you were there too. All right, we had a chance to talk to Charles Davis from NFL Network yesterday from the Combine in Indianapolis. Let's listen in and watch that interview right now. And now we welcome in from NFL Network, who will have coverage of the NFL Combine all week long, Charles Davis. Charles, Schmeelk and Dottino trapped here in the Tri-State area. Hope you're well in Indy, man. Have a steak for me, have a shrimp cocktail for me, whatever else they have out there, my friend.
We're going to do all of that and light candles for both of you. Let me tell you, both are missed here, but please stay safe, you and everyone else back in my home state of New York.
I've been at every combine since 2012, so this one is hitting me hard. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah. Trust me, you're both missed.
I appreciate that, Charles, and we miss seeing you in person. So let's start here. What makes this draft class unique to you from a 20,000-foot view?
I don't know that I call it unique, but I do call it a little bit different because the emphasis of the quarterback is never greater. And would you say that in the time we've all known each other, that you can pretty much say that every year and it just continues to grow.
Yeah.
I remember about 5 to 7 years ago, I was saying the game has never been more quarterback centric than it is right now. And that just continues to grow. But this is not one of those quarterback classes. So it's a very interesting year in the NFL. If you're looking for a quarterback, free agency is not loaded with quarterbacks. The draft is not loaded with quarterbacks. And what was really interesting is last year at this time, we were saying, well, wait till the 2026 quarterback class. It's loaded. And it turned out that it was not.
So, Charles, because there's such a dearth of QBs, there may only be one in the first round, right? Mendoza.
The only one I would take in the first round.
Okay, so basically that means all of the conversations that we usually have about the top 5 picks and how many QBs will be in there and push guys down and maybe somebody wants to trade down, all of that stuff is out the window this year.
I would agree. It's out the window for that. The only thing that kicks in now, Paul, is if you're a team that you want to accumulate picks because you really need an infusion on your team, you're trying to find trade partner to do that, because I don't know if I'm absolutely right on this, but as I've started my evaluations, I'm not sure where you guys are on it. Remember that old expression? Well, the guy you pick at 20, I can probably get him again at 40, or I can get him at 50. This kind of feels like that kind of draft. And I don't mean that for a critique. It just feels like there are a lot of bodies, but I don't know how many of them are the standout, gotta have, I'll sell the farm for this guy. That's kind of where we are on this one. So it's going to be interesting how it goes, because I do think there's depth at edge rusher. I do think there's depth in the defensive line. I know there's depth at wide receiver, but until we start going back to the wishbone and triple option football, we're always going to have receivers nowadays, because, you go see your Pop Warner games now, right? If you've got nephews or nieces and grandkids and the whole deal, they're playing Pop Warner, they're playing out of the gun and they're playing Pop Warner football. So the days when I grew up, hey, I'm going to wear my favorite running back's jersey, those days are long gone. So we'll have a lot of receivers always, but quarterbacks, not this year. Running backs, decent crop of runners. Tight ends, not the same as last year, but still decent crop of tight ends, but not like we had at the top with Loveland and Warren.
Are there a couple guys, Charles, that if you're the Giants at 5, you're sitting there hoping they drop to you, or is like this first group of 7 or 8 guys all kind of on the same tier, or is there kind of a drop off in there that the Giants should try to avoid?
I'd love anything if the Giants, if somehow Arvell Reese doesn't get taken in the first 5 picks. I would be really happy with something like that.
But also very surprised, I would imagine.
Beyond surprised. You know what it would be like, guys? And you've experienced this because you've gone through these drafts. There's those years when a certain player that we've all projected to go in the top 10 doesn't. And then we start going, who knows something that we don't know? Right? We had that tight end a few years ago who ended up going to Tampa at like 21 that we all thought was a top 5 to 10 pick. I forgot his name now, unfortunately. And he started to slide. And then it almost felt like people were deliberately not taking him because they couldn't quite quantify what was going on. And then Tampa stopped his slide at like 21 or 22. So those things can happen as well, because if you don't have full information, you're afraid of making that choice. But I don't see Reese getting to the Giants at 5. I just don't see it happening. Now what happens is a Bain your flavor? Is a David Bailey your flavor? Is Sonny Styles a top 5 player for you at that spot? Caleb Downs from Ohio State is as good a safety as there is. I think he's the best safety in this draft. But he doesn't look like Kyle Hamilton. He doesn't look like Derwin James. Doesn't look like Nick Eamon-Warry. So how are you going to play him?
Now, Charles, when you say doesn't look like them, you mean physically doesn't look like them, right? Yes, I got you.
Physically and play style, because he is a really good football player. But you're not asking him to go dive in the slot. You're not asking him to now go to outside. You're not asking him to go to dime linebacker. You're not asking him to go back to free safety like you're asking those other 3. Okay, you're asking him to play free safety for you or strong safety and go make plays. And he does that. He does that really, really well. But his body composition is really different. Like those guys are long. Derwin James can fly. Eamon Warrior's even faster. And Kyle Hamilton is just covering all fields. I mean, it's just they're just different. That's all.
Charles, about a month ago, you and I did a deep dive into John Harbaugh, right?
Yeah.
Right before he got hired by the
Right
Giants.
before.
So now he's here. And we know there's a collaboration, as it's been described, between John Harbaugh and Joe Schoen. Now, John and I know very well how Joe Schoen operates in the draft because we've been here now for several years. You know John Harbaugh very well. What will be his influence? What will he want to see the most out of this draft class, and specifically the number 5 pick? Because all we know is that he's looked us in the eye and say, I want guys who love football all the time. And that's about all we know.
Paul, it's a great question because here's the thing. As much as I quote unquote know John Harbaugh from my experiences of covering him, you guys both know that you don't really know that coach. You know what you've experienced by being with him. The next thing is, can I trace his draft history? The answer is truly no. You know why? Because while he's been the head coach, it's been Ozzie Newsome, and then it's been Eric DeCosta. And they are very much a front office driven drafting team. Does that mean he hasn't had influence? No, he's had influence, but you don't know quite what that influence is. Now, the best one that I know of that I feel very confident about talking about was they had a real deep dive on Lamar Jackson before the draft. And they created a plan for how they would use Lamar Jackson if indeed Ozzie Newsome took him in that draft. And as you may remember, that was Ozzie Newsome's last draft that he ran as the general manager before bumping up to senior vice president. So during that time frame, John Harbaugh got with his staff. They evaluated him, okay? I think DeJuan Jones was the guy who really stood on the table for him as one of their scouts for Lamar Jackson. If we get Lamar Jackson, this is what we think our offense should look like and how we envision playing. So it's kind of one of those ones, you put a plan together, but you don't know if you're ever going to use it. That's about all I have in terms of saying this is my John Harbaugh influence. Everything else he's telling you is exactly what he's going to look for in a player. What exactly he tells Joe Schoen, I think that'll be revealed with this draft about what he's looking for. Because before, it was always Newsome, DeCosta. John Harbaugh coached these guys. Didn't mean he didn't have influence, but did you ever hear about it? The answer is no. It was always a front office-driven group.
No, Charles, you're absolutely right. I think that's a really good answer. You haven't mentioned wide receivers, Charles. Do you see a group where there are some guys worth taking at the top here, or is this group so deep and thick kind of in that middle end of the first round area that waiting till pick 37 might be the better move?
Yeah, that's a tough one on it. A tough one for you because those first 4 picks, right? I mean, if you're looking at it, we know Mendoza is almost a lock at 1, right? Who do the Jets decide to take it to? What defensive player? What overall player? Is it Reese? Is it Bain? Is it Bailey? And then the dominoes fall from there to get you to 5. A receiver. I'm crazy about Carnell Tate as we dive into this. I've got a long way to go, but I really like Carnell Tate the best because I like the fact that he went to Ohio State knowing what the competition was going to be and never shied away from it and found a way to carve out his moments even with Jeremiah Smith there in this last season. I'm really crazy about this kid. Is he worth it at 5? Well, if he's the best player on your board at 5, I would take him because I don't know the next step on that one. I'm not going to bypass Carnell Tate if I have someone rated lower to go get him in this draft. That's the hard part, as you said, is if you take that receiver at 5, can you get another receiver later? Yeah, you can because it's a loaded receiver group. But will they be as good as Tate? Could be because we've seen that happen many times before as well. But I just go off of where my rankings are. If I'm Joe Schoen and I'm John Harbaugh, if I've got that kid rated and he's better, I'm taking him in this draft.
Charles Davis from New Paltz High School, also NFL Network.
That's right.
Appreciate him.
Hey, appreciate you. And if you're from New Paltz, you know what we always say? Beat Highland. There you go.
Charles, enjoy Indy for us, my friend.
Thank you.
Good, Charles.
I will. Miss you guys. Next year, we're all here together.
Absolutely.
You
well,
got it.
Weather permitting. Thanks, Charles. one of our favorite. That's Charles Davis, one of our favorite people from the NFL Combine in Indianapolis. And now we go back live today at our table in Indy. The one and only Sam Brookhouse from Sumer Sports. Sam, you got Schmeelk and Dottino here, buried under about 1.5 feet of snow in New York. I know you didn't have that problem down there in New Orleans, right?
No, I haven't. And, I live down there on 34th and 3rd in Manhattan. I haven't been home because producer Stopsky over here, as many love him and know him at the New York Giants. He's had me on the road here for like 5 weeks. So I was warm and nice in LA, and then I got flown out to Indianapolis. I got one more stop in Atlanta, which that one's not Stopsky, like, to be clear. Stopsky has let me go. Dobby is free. But anyway, you gotta love it. Hey, we're talking football. We're talking football, man. So like I'm not complaining. I'm talking about like safeties and corners, and the combine is the most fun. So I'm sad y'all aren't here, but I'm glad to talk to y'all.
Yeah, Sam. So why don't we start here? For someone that does what you do, you're a former college linebacker. You're somebody that tracks data as well, and how that path is kind of developing the National Football League. What's important at the combine for you? What are you learning? What are you trying to figure out? And just kind of what's your focus this week?
So here's what the data says. The combine athletic drills that everyone likes to watch, how does that project to performance at the next level? If I had to put it out of 10, I'd put it at maximum a 3, probably realistically more of a 2 out of 10. So we're not going to get an absolute ton of juice. If a guy runs a great 40, it doesn't mean he's going to be excellent, but it does tell us something about these prospects. It may move a player a spot or 2 up or down a board. And that's valuable information to have. And here's why the combine is so valuable. They've been doing it the same way with minimal changes. Obviously, we went from stopwatch to laser, and the grass changes in Indy every once in a while. And, maybe the shirts and the shorts that they're wearing get a little tighter or something like that. But for the most part, it's been the same track for every single year for the past 50 years. So when we say Deion Sanders ran something and we say John Ross ran something, that probably reasonably is in the same sample size. And this is really the only thing in the draft that really is like that. And so as a result, the 3 out of 10, I'd actually say means something. And it means something particularly for offensive linemen, tight ends, certain drills for linebackers. And then you can get a little bit of knowledge about corners as well. That's really the 4 positions to watch, in my personal opinion. You don't really care as much about the wide receivers. The quarterbacks, the more athletic ones are going to test and the less athletic ones aren't. But if you keep a close eye on the offensive linemen, tight ends, linebackers, and corners, you can really kind of get a sense of a stack rank of some of these players.
All right, Sam, since Sumer Sports is really a great data collection service, in addition to being an analyst like yourself, let me ask you, for those people out there who do salivate in the drills. We know that Xavier Worthy ran the 4.21, right, which was the best all-time fastest 40 time. Are there any drills that are going to go down this week where there's going to be a record breaker? Whether it's the deadlift, whether it's the jumping, to get the little what do you call it, the slats that they have to jump to get to, or the 40 time. Anything that's going to fall this week?
I don't know if it's going to be a record breaker, but I'm really interested in what King and Sadiq, the tight end out of Oregon, runs. And the reason why is the 40-yard dash does have some predictive value, amongst the most predictive value of any drill across any position in the NFL draft. We have King and Sadiq as a certified blue chip estimated guy based on his tracking data. This dude can fly. I wouldn't be shocked if we see a wide receiver-esque 40 from King and Sadiq. Now, whether that's in the mid 4.5s, low 4.5s, I think it depends on what he weighs in on, because I think, frankly, that's a bigger question than his 40 time. But if King and Sadiq puts up some crazy numbers, we're going to start to have some heat behind him. You're going to start hearing him talked about a little bit more, a la what we heard about Brock Bowers, what we heard about Tyler Warren and Colson Loveland last year. And he's going to become a much bigger story if he has a good 40. And this is the rare case as a data scientist that I'd say it's probably actually okay to make the combine performance for a tight end a big story.
Wow.
You mentioned linebackers. I always think of linebackers, Sam, as a more mental position where you got to see things, have your eyes in the right places, have good instincts and stuff like that. Which drills for you are most important as someone that used to play the position for for that linebacker spot to keep an eye on?
Yeah, so it's interesting because we see a slightly higher correlation for the speed drills. And I think the reason you want to see that is because the NFL has changed. These linebackers got to be able to cover. And if you can't cover up and down the field, you're not going to play at the next level. You see a guy like Zach Bond, for example. Zach Bond is great because he takes the entire middle of the field away on almost every play. How does he do that? He does it with speed. And we thought he was going to be an edge rusher. I'm a New Orleans Saints fan. Growing up, I'm from Lake Charles, Louisiana. We thought he was going to use that speed to rush the passer in New Orleans. It turns out that he's actually a great coverage guy. And I think we're learning more and more that if you can have these linebackers really play tight man coverage on these slot receivers that cause all kinds of problems, as well as drop deep in the zones, utilize speed to do so, then use pursuit to crash back down, that's a big difference. So I'm really looking at the speed drills as well for linebackers.
Let me discard positional value for a second and ask you about Styles, Reese, and Bailey, linebacker, edge rusher guys, who all have very, very high headlines, people talking about these guys going very high in the draft. What does the data tell you specifically about their physical capabilities? Again, regardless of position, where should they be on an overall ranking board strictly based on their numbers?
Hey, asking a data scientist, especially me who has master's research to not care about positional value is a tough one, but I'll do it just for y'all because I love y'all. Look, you look at Sonny Styles, and here's a guy who has quality traits across the board in terms of the way that we analytically try to objectify and add process to this. I think that there's a true chance that as the season or as the draft season goes on, he could be considered one of the best players in the draft, probably a top 5, top 10 consensus big board guy. What does that mean? Because he's going to probably play off-ball linebacker, it's probably not going to mean that much. That would mean that it'd be a stress test for me as a data scientist to really say you should go in the top 15 if we're talking about positional value. But there's a real chance that he is by far the best linebacker in this draft, at least based on what the data is telling us and based on what the consensus data is coming in. Let's talk about David Bailey. Here's a guy who is a pass rusher. I realize that it seems as if he's kind of starting to be marketed on Twitter, on the phone as an outside backer. I think he's an edge rusher. And I think a team like the Tennessee Titans, for example, who runs kind of a system that allows these guys to pin their ears back. Robert Saleh has utilized Bryce Huff. He's utilized Will McDonald while he was in New York with the Jets. I think he's more of your classical pass rusher, which does bring value. Over that, I just worry about his run defense. And then you have Arvell Reese. And this has been one of the big shockers. What I like to do when I'm at the combine is get a sense of what the narratives are and what the discussions are and what the folks who dive extremely deep into the film, what they are saying about the players in comparison to one another. And I like to compare that to the data. Arvell Reese, a big thing in data science, is the ability to build confidence in a projection. And so that's basically to shrink the window of understanding. We just don't have a very small window of understanding for Arvell Reese because we have not seen him take a ton of edge rushes.
Right. Yep.
And so our understanding of his edge rushing potential definitely includes that all-pro defensive player of the year stuff. It just also includes maybe a guy who's just a speed rusher on third down. It's a really wide distribution of what we understand about him right now. And I think that really muddles it. What we do know about him and what we are confident in is that he is an immensely good blitzer and he's an immensely good stunter. And I think that if he's in the right system, you can put him in that in year one. He can make an impact. He can rack up sacks as a result. And then he can learn the ways of the NFL. And I think that's going to be the key for Arvell Reese. That being said, talking to the evaluators who understand talent and understand, talking to the coaches and stuff like that, that the data necessarily can't put in, they do seem to believe that he is far and away the best sheer talent in this.
Okay.
Sam, well, we got to run. I got one more for you before we do. We got about 2 minutes.
Sweet.
Measurements. We always talk about thresholds of certain positions, that teams have certain thresholds. At different positions, we want guys to match this height, weight, even athletic testing. But I'm more worried about body type. In the data, does that prove out? Once you get to certain spots in certain positions, should you start crossing guys off your list if they just don't meet certain thresholds in terms of length, height, weight, whatever?
I think there's certain spots in which it matters, but it's more about kind of the levers here. So take Will Campbell, for example, and I think Reuben Bain is going to be the Will Campbell of this draft class. Will Campbell has short arms.
Yeah.
Well, can he make up for it with his feet? You know, we may be a little biased because of his Super Bowl performance against Mike McDonald, who is on fire as the defensive play caller and was basically attacking that entire line. But for the most part, if you told Mike Vrabel that he was going to get I think he got hurt for 3 to 5 games. Like if you told him you were going to get 15 quality weeks out of Will Campbell, I think he would have taken that every time at 3, given the production. I think it's going to be the same thing with Reuben Bain. I'm not a massive believer that if it's on the margins that you just immediately cross the guy out. It may be a little safer to do that in the data, but there's not necessarily a strong correlation between that. Now, a guy like Diego Pavia, who checks in at 5'9", you're going to have to use him in a radically different way. You're going to have to overcome that with coaching in a way that you can't necessarily come up with it in terms of Reuben Bain, who has different physical traits, power, violence, etc., that shows up in the data to overcome the shorter arms in quotes.
Interesting. Sam, I'll give you a chance. Sumer Live, I talked about it on last week's show, the way you guys are able to kind of track everything in real time in terms of coverages, blitzes, and everything. Just tell the folks what Sumer Live is, where they can find it, and why you guys think it's pretty unique and special.
Yeah, what runs Sumer Live is our detailed tracking of the game every 10th of a second. 2 places to find that fun stuff. Sumer Sports YouTube channel. We have the evaluation up. We have the Sumer Sports show up. Sumersports.com. You can check out my Combine article. I talked about some of it. It's live there. There's graphs. It's really easy to read. It goes position by position. You can also check out our draft guide. Tons of great data there about the top 300 prospects.
Awesome. Sam, good stuff, my friend. Wish I was out there getting a drink with you, but we'll catch up soon, my bud.
Be well.
Thank y'all so much.
Sam Burkhouse from Sumer Sports. We're going to have Dane Brugler from that same table in Indianapolis in just a moment. And Paul, it's funny, you know, this stuff matters with the measurements and the data. And I go back to the old Bill Parcellsism. If you start drafting outliers, you're going to have a team full of outliers, and you don't want that. So
that's right. That's
always the trick. Which guys can you trust to do it, despite maybe the fact they don't meet those traditional thresholds, and which guys can you trust? And that's always a thing that evaluators really try to figure out as we go along here.
Well, you know, I remember years ago when I started in this business, a scout say to me, and he's like, the tape will not lie. And, you know, Antrell Roll, when he got here, always used to say, believe what you see. And ultimately, that's where the old school guys are, you know, and it's in every sport. Scouts in every sport. The old school guys will say, I know what I see. I know what my gut tells me. And then you'll have somebody else say, well, but these numbers tell you something else. And you got to find a way to marry it somehow.
No question about it. All right, folks, don't forget, looking for more than just a ticket, Elevate Experiences delivers VIP access to the world's biggest events, from the Super Bowl to NASCAR to PGA Tour tournaments. Don't just attend, elevate the experience at elevateexperiences.com. Back to the Combine Indianapolis. Friend of the program, the one and only Dane Brugler from The Athletic. Dane, it is absolutely killing me that I'm not sitting next to you right now doing this live. We are buried under 1.5 feet of snow. As an Ohio guy, you know what that's like. The wife's happy that I'm not in Indianapolis, but I must admit that I am not.
I mean, look, you owe me dinner, and this is just a very convenient way for you to get out of it. Let's be honest. Call it what it is.
Dane, there is no question about that. He is welching on you.
I'm cagey. I know what I'm doing. I'm no fool. This is not my first rodeo. All right, Dane. I missed catching up with you in between all these podiums. I know you like going from podium to podiums. So let's start there this morning. Any podiums that struck you, and also any measurements that have come out so far have struck you?
I have not really focused on the measurement yet, but it has been a busy morning going from podium to podium. The defensive linemen, edge, and defensive tackles. Obviously, the Reuben Bains, the David Baileys have been a very well-attended podium, and so it can be tough to get some of the questions you want in those settings. But so I like to focus on the later round guys, the mid-round guys. Like Xavier Harris from Ole Miss, the defensive tackle, big guy, 6'7", 330 pounds. I asked him when the growth spurt happened for him. He was 5'8" in 8th grade. He showed up for freshman football at 6'6". I had never heard of a growth spurt quite like that. But like that guy is, he benefits from the planet theory. There's only so many people on this planet who are his size and can move like that. So he's gonna go probably mid day 3 somewhere. But yeah, it's been a busy morning so far.
You know, I want to ask you a kind of a generic question because this year we've got the one quarterback, Mendoza, at number one, and there's not going to be anybody else in that first round at quarterback, right? I think we all think second round, maybe. So
Ty Simpson, maybe will get in there. Yeah.
Okay, so how does this change for you? Because we always spend so much time talking about 2, 3, 4, 5 quarterbacks in that first round on how the draft is going to fall and how the gradings have to come out. But that's a different deal this year. It's like an entirely different environment that we're not used to.
Right. And, we kind of did this a little bit last year where it was like, okay, it's a Cam Ward type of draft. And then who else might get in there? And turns out Jackson Dart was very deserving of going where he did in the first round with the way he played this year. So this year, is there another Jackson Dart? Is there another quarterback that teams can look at and say, hey, he can start games for us. He can help win us games. And Ty Simpson is really the one quarterback you look at and say, okay, he did some good things at Alabama. He's a one-year starter. That's always the concern when a guy has 15 career starts. The track record of quarterbacks with so few starts is not good. The last 15 years, we're talking Mitchell Trubisky, Dwayne Haskins, Anthony Richardson. It's not a really strong list, but he's unique because he came up, obviously his dad, 20-year FCS head coach. So he kind of got his quarterback education at a young age. And so he's a little more unique than your typical one-year starter. And this will be a big week for him. Just to, obviously, the interview process and see what do you know, what don't you know. But he has a chance to stand out here, especially with Mendoza not doing anything. He's waiting for the pro day. So this is a big opportunity for Simpson, also Garrett Nussmeier, and even a guy like Cole Payton from North Dakota State, who definitely teams like. It's just another guy, one-year starter, and you have to figure out, okay, where exactly are you in your development process? Because he didn't even get to play in the SEC like Ty Simpson. He was in the FCS level. So plenty of question marks, but the talent's pretty intriguing. I remember talking last summer to a scout. He said he liked him as a tight end convert because he's a really good athlete at 6'3", 220 pounds. So they liked him as like maybe a fullback convert, and then he actually got on the field and okay, he's a big lefty passer, can do some things down the field. So he's gonna be drafted as a quarterback, and it'll be interesting. Where does a team feel like they need a bite? Is it third round? Could he get into day 2? It's possible. So Peyton's an interesting one.
Yeah, Taylor Green could be one of those quarterback tight end converts down the road too. I think,
Sure.
Given his athletic ability, it's a unique draft, Dane, because of the quarterbacks, but also when you're picking 5th, the Giants picked 3rd last year, and we talked about a lot of different prospects, but let's all be honest with each other. We knew it was either going to be Travis Hunter or Abdul Carter. And whichever guy was there, that's who the Giants were going to pick.
We knew that.
The Giants are picking at 5 this year. Dane, I'm going to list all the players that I would not rule out the Giants picking at 5. Fano, Maui Noah, Caleb Downs. I'll even throw Jeremiah Love in there just because he's such a highly rated player. Sonny Styles, Mansour Delane, Carnell Tate. Can I maybe throw in another wide receiver or 2 in that? I'm at 7 guys. They're picking 5th. Like, it just shows you what a weird draft class it is. And by the way, these 7 guys I mentioned, I think in a normal year will be picked like 11th or 12th. It's just a really weird year to be picking 5th.
Oh, I imagine if you're picking at 12th, they say you're the Cowboys. You have no idea how those first 11 picks are going to come off the board. Like a guy like Caleb Downs could go 2, he could go 12. Just because we talk about position value and, Caleb Downs is an outstanding player, but not every team's on board with drafting a safety that early. Obviously, Sonny Styles being an off-ball linebacker, not every team's going to be comfortable drafting an off-ball linebacker in the top 10, but I think Sonny Styles is one of the guys that you make an exception for. Not only is he, the tape really good, but 6'4", 240 pounds. He's going to test really well. He also has, just turned 21 years old. He's a young player. And so you feel like that arrow is still pointing up and he's going to get better and better. I think it's a draft where you have to be, instead of chasing upside, instead of really focusing on traits, just draft a good football player. Like that, to me, that is the theme of this year's top 10. Just draft a good football player. Who's going to best impact your roster, whether that's a Caleb Downs, whether that's a Sonny Styles, Jeremiah Love for some teams, maybe that's the answer, or one of these receivers, even though, I like these receivers, but none of them have as high of a grade as McMillan last year for me. personally. So now I think Carnell Tate's kind of right behind him. But in this draft, Carnell Tate at 5, I think would certainly make some sense.
You know, Dane, I want to build off of what you just said. I wonder if this year, and teams will never admit to whether or not they go with best player available or they really do weigh positional value. They'll never admit to that. But I wonder, this year, I suspect we're going to see more teams do best player available than probably we've ever seen before. Is that not the case?
Yeah. Oh, 100%. And I think because we can't pick and choose what the draft gives us. This is what this class is. You know, we can't. There's no point in complaining about it because it's not going to change anything. This is what this draft is. And so instead of forcing something that's not there, let's take the good football player. And so, yeah, not many top 10s in today's day and age has a safety, a linebacker, a running back come off the board like we're going to have this year. And even a guy like Ruben Bain, who's had a really good tape, had really good playoff, but he's short-armed. His body type's not what you think of as a prototypical top 5 pick at defensive end. All these guys you can poke holes in them, they have their own little flaws. So it is really a unique top 5.
Yeah, it really is. And, Dane, the one guy that I'm trying to figure out, because he plays a valuable position at corner, is Mansour Delane. Why he shouldn't be the guy that, all right, well, if it's between him, Styles, and Downs, corner is more valuable, and there's no doubting Delane's tape this year. I mean, it was fantastic. You could not complete a pass on him. His coverage was fantastic. So why not, at least in his specific case, say, all right, Delane plays more valuable position at corner. I would take him over a guy like Styles or Downs.
That's certainly a worthy case to be made because you're right. I mean, tell me where the bad tape is. I'm still looking for it with Delane. It's just – and it's not like he played at a lower conference. He played in the SEC, and week in, week out, he was locking down man, zone, off, press, whatever you want him to do. There is an example on film that you can point to. The thing that's like here at the combine will be interesting because I don't think he's going to be a big tester. Like if he runs, say, a 4.48, to me, that's what the tape says. Now we'll see. Maybe he'll surprise. But to me, the tape says he's a 4.48 athlete. The size is going to be very mediocre. He's like 5'11". The arm length will be under 31 inches. So he doesn't have the physical traits that jump out at you for a top 10 corner. So if you don't have that, you better be pretty good in terms of just the tape. And I think he is. So in this draft, especially, any conversation that you have in the top 10, if you need a corner, Delane should be part of it.
Generic question about the Giants, Dane, because as we look at it, we hear two philosophies that people give you from afar. They say, you know what? You got to help Jackson Dart. You got to give him weapons. You got to do whatever you can to keep him upright and to give him weapons. Then you have other people say the priority's got to be this defense because the defense was very substandard for the last couple of years, especially against the run. Given what's in this draft, the depth on offense and the depth at defense, how do you think the Giants should lean their philosophy?
Yeah, and obviously when you're picking top 5, I think you need to take the best player, and just because you don't know how each position is going to play out. But I think it's fair to forecast and say, okay, well, we're deep at edge rusher, so we can wait there. It's deep at safety, we can wait there. Like corner, I think corner is a good example where I think there's a drop off. I think once we get outside the top 100, maybe first 3 rounds, I do think there's a little bit of a drop off. So if you really want to come away with a corner in this class, I think you should do it in the first 3 rounds. So I think that is important context to how you make your decisions about who you're going to draft and where. And then, receivers deep. So I think one of the reasons to not draft a receiver at 5 is I think you feel good about your options, 2nd round, 3rd round, maybe not the caliber of what you're getting at 5, but if you're just trying to come away with the best haul possible, I understand where you come to that conclusion where, all right, let's get our corner, let's get, our linebacker, whoever, our impact player here at 5. We'll come back in the 2nd round, get our receiver. We even wait till the 3rd round, get a Ted Hurst from, Georgia State. You could do that. So it's a deep receiver class and probably always will be. It's just the way that things are with the receiver position.
The 2 tackles, Dane, Maui Noah, and Fano, I just watched them, and I know what a top 5 offensive linemen looks like, and they just don't look like it to me. I can't get there with them at number 5. In a normal draft, like, are they, teens? Are they, 18 or 19? And how do you view those guys? Are you reaching a little bit if you pick one of those guys as early as 5?
It's hard to reach in this draft. I mean, if we're being honest, right? If you need an offensive lineman, if you need an offensive lineman, I can understand if the Cardinals at 3. If they want to find an answer at right tackle, I could understand where you would say, all right, Spencer Fano, come on down. Like that's where we're gonna go. Now they're not bust proof by any means, but I think that I think your point is correct. Again, most drafts these guys aren't going top 5, top 7. But in this draft, they have a chance to do that, and they're both right tackles, so it's unique. Where there's no Joe Alt in this class, right? Like a guy that's that prototypical left tackle skill set. Monroe Freeling from Georgia, he might be the closest thing to that prototypical left tackle skill set, and which is why he could very well end up going top 15 in this draft. But it's 32 teams need offensive tackle help, and that's why we're going to see 5, 6 offensive tackles go in the top 32, top 35. So I think if you want an offensive tackle in this class, you're better off doing it early.
Dane, how seriously would you consider Downs at 5 for the Giants? And if you were to pick him, how would you get the most value out of him when he comes to the NFL?
Yes, absolutely, I would. And again, this comes back to the fact that I think the theme of this draft should be just draft good football players. And Caleb Downs maybe epitomizes that because he plays a position that is generally not drafted top 10. He's not going to be this amazing, freaky tester here. Like, good size, good athlete, but I wouldn't say amazing either one of those categories. What separates him is how smart he is. What separates him is the intelligence factor. And he played in 3 different defenses for 3 different defensive coordinators the last 3 years, and he was an impact player in all 3. The ways that they would use him this past year with Matt Patricia in that scheme, where they disguise so much, where you don't know what he's going to do. If it's a run play, he's doing this. If he reads pass, he's going to do something else. And the communication, when you watch some Ohio State tape, and the next time you do, when you're watching Caleb Downs, watch his communication and how he's getting guys lined up. And having that type of player in the back end of your defense is so important. Like, just a quick example, Seattle Seahawks. Nick Emenwari was the guy that we kept talking about because of the versatility. Watch the Seahawks tape. Watch Devin Witherspoon. Devin Witherspoon's the one telling Nick Emenwari, hey, you're doing this. You're going to do this. You're doing that. You need that guy to unlock everybody else. And I think Caleb Downs can be that player. So, again, it's a little bit unorthodox, but in this draft, absolutely, I'd consider it.
Yeah, I'm with you, Dane. Final question for me is a 2-parter, so I apologize. 1, give me your guy that you would still consider your pet cat that everyone else hasn't caught up on and has ruined the fact that you like him so much that maybe you're still sleeping a little bit. And then number 2, who are some of the guys you think we should keep an eye on this week as we start the on-field drills and the tests that you think can really help themselves?
Yeah, I mean, Chris Johnson, the corner from San Diego State. I think he's not as much of a secret as he was in September, but I really like him. I mean, I think he's a top 40 pick. He's going to be a starter at the next level. I think D'Angelo Pons isn't as much of a secret because of Indiana and the high profile they had this year, but the size is what it is. I'm going to bet on the competitor and the athlete that he brings. So, yeah, those 2 guys definitely stand out. And in terms of players here that I'm eager to see and guys that might be raising their profile, I mean, Brennan Thompson, he's my pick for the fastest 40 this week. He had over 1,000 yards this year. He led the SEC in receiving yards. So it's not like he's just a speed guy. I think if he had a better quarterback at Mississippi State, he would have had 2,000 yards. No offense to Mississippi State's passing game, but Brennan Thompson can fly. He's got an invisible jetpack on underneath his pads and can really go. So there's a couple receivers in this class with him, Kendrick Law from Kentucky, Malik Benson from Oregon. So there's some of these mid-round, 3rd round, 4th round receivers that I think are going to open some eyes.
Dane, we appreciate the time as always, my friend. Enjoy Indy for us, and we'll talk to you soon, bud.
Take care.
All right. Take care, guys.
And, of course, The Athletic will publish Dane's Beast, his big draft guide coming up, and all his mock drafts and top 50s you can find, top 100s you can find on theathletic.com. All right, Paul, another day at the Combine is in the books.
Yes.
And
by the way, if you don't sprain your back lifting snow, you'll sprain it lifting the beast.
Yes,
Because that is a very, very big piece of work.
Dana's other hits. I usually ask him about the beast at the end of this of the interview, but I wanted to let him go because I'm sure he has other hits he has to do. But always good talking to everybody. Thank you to Paul. Thank you to Charles Davis today. Thank you to Sam. Thank you to Dane. Really good show. And again, our tech crew that got this done, Charles Pearson and Matt. Awesome job by everybody. There's Stopsky. Do you want to put him on there real quick, Charles? Do you want to show him?
Pop him up.
Let's show him. This is the yo-yo.
Smile, Matt.
This is the guy that is at the combine that managed to run our Zoom table for us. That works on our radio team. If you guys watch the Behind the Blue radio
Behind
broadcast,
the Blue, that's him.
Which you should. It's a
you
great
will see,
show.
Matt. It is a fantastic series. So, Matt, thank you for setting this up. We have 2 more days of these. We appreciate it.
Oh, you're very welcome. Happy to help.
Thanks, Matt.
Did you have any news or scuttlebutt from the combine you want to share with us? Any news of steaks or shrimp cocktails or anything like that? What do you got?
I made Sam Brockhouse do shrimp cocktail, and he kind of failed his Cajun roots test and may have died a little bit on the table, but it was good. It was fun.
Wow.
Well done, Matt Stopsky. Enjoy Indy for us, my friend.
I am here to bully people. That's what I'm here for.
We just officially we do not approve bullying here at the New York Football Giants. But
No,
we
do
approve
not.
Bullying Matt Stopsky. That is always fun. Matt, good stuff, man. Stay safe out there,
Be
buddy.
good, Matt.
All right, so Paul, first book, we're first day, second day in the books, whatever it is.
2 days in the book.
So we are going to now get all the podiums, and we're gonna have to watch them.
Yeah.
So we could talk about them tomorrow.
Mhm.
What kills me about this is that we're not going to be able to really see the people up close and personal.
No,
I
I
like
know.
walking to the side of the podium, seeing the body type and the makeup, and that's really what you learn about the stuff. You can see them on video. You can listen to what they say, but. Paul mentioned it, talking to other people that watch the podiums in between, getting other people's opinion on stuff, maybe things that you missed that you didn't see. It's just not the same.
No, it's not. No, it's not. But you know what, John? We do what we can, and we hope you folks out there are enjoying it because, after all, this is the start of a very, very busy 2 months.
Yes, and Big Blue Kickoff Live will be live again on Thursday and Friday from noon to 1. Make sure you check it out. The archives can be found, of course, on the Giants YouTube channel, Giants.com, the Giants app, and, of course, your favorite podcast platform. Make sure you go and subscribe. And also, Giants Huddle Podcast will have one each of the 4 days this week, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. We have draft season, our combine preview on Monday. Still relevant. No one's done any events or anything yet, so
No.
you guys should check that out with me and Tony Pauline. We had Daniel Jeremiah yesterday. It was a good conversation. Ian Rappaport coming your way today. Pat Kerwin later in the week, and I'm working on Greg Cosell as well. So those should be our Giants huddles for the rest of the week. Make sure you go check those out. Also, just make sure you stay tuned. We'll have a bunch of we did manage to get a cameraman and a photog out there, so we should have some stuff coming from the combine in some way, shape, or form over the next couple of days as the airports and airlines finally gave us a little bit of a break for some of our crew over the last 12 hours or so. Paul, always a pleasure. We'll see you tomorrow at noon.
You got it, John.
For Paul Dottino, I'm John Schmeelk. We'll see you next time on Big Blue Kickoff Live, presented by Cadillac, the official luxury vehicle of the Giants. We love the Hackensack Meridian Hill podcast studio. Keep getting better. We just wish we were in Indianapolis, but that's okay. We'll see you tomorrow, everybody.